Hi, I'm Tasha with the Bay Area chapter of the Goretti Group, and I am so excited because today I am here with Miss Amber Rose, the religious hippie. How are you, Amber?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here, Tasha.
So, Amber, can you tell me a little bit about your journey? I know that you recently came back to Catholicism. Can you tell me what happened to you?
Yeah, so basically, starting from my childhood, I was raised in a very devout Catholic household. And then around like 10 to 13 years old, we fell away from the faith. And obviously, I couldn't drive at that point. And I was honestly okay falling away from the faith at that point because I was into very worldly things with my friends. And as a teenager, you kind of just want to explore and you're kind of rebellious and stuff like that. And so I went through that for about 8 years. And then I kind of hit this low point in my life where I wasn't hanging out with the best people. They weren't giving me joy. I was getting walked all over. They would constantly use me for getting rides and money. Like I was one of those friends that just got beat up all the time, basically, emotionally, sometimes physically, but mainly emotionally.
You're
And
giving a lot,
so
like the giver.
yes, people would call me the mom friend, but I felt more like I was giving everything I possibly could, and they were just taking it. And it caused a very disordered friendships throughout my life because people would constantly take, and I was a people pleaser. So I constantly expected them to like me after I gave them things, and when they didn't, that kind of caused some emotional issues. So everything was really disordered in my life at that point. And then I was having a lot of issues in my previous relationship, and there were just a lot of stuff going on there. And so I kind of just hit this low point. And I remember like one of the main foundations as a child was we would always go to mass together as a family. And I always enjoyed that time, despite the fact I threw major fits because my mom would make me wear a veil. I was like not happy about that ever. But I still enjoyed spending that time, with my family. We'd go out to eat afterwards. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go to mass. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I still knew how to dress for mass. Like, I knew skirts and I knew like modest tops, like nothing immodest. It had sleeves and dresses and everything. So I went to church and I had a major conversion in front of the Eucharist. And then after that, I kind of just went on this whole journey of learning, coming back into my faith. And a lot of people are surprised that it happened so fast. And that's true. I feel like some people, it can take over 30 years for some people to convert. But for me, I instantly realized that everything I was missing, all like every single thing I was missing in my life, I found at church. And I was already in the sacraments, I had already gone through all the sacraments and everything. So I scheduled a confession and I had to go to a couple of them before I felt like I was good because I would keep remembering stuff and I'm like, dang it, got to go back with another list. I mean, 8 years, like it was a long time. And even then, I feel like before I left the faith, I was abusing confession because of the fact that I would be like, oh, well, I'll sin now and then I'll just be forgiven later. And I think that's a common thing that young people do because they don't understand confession. Maybe they're not catechized properly. But basically, yeah, and I've been on that journey for almost 2 years now, and I've learned a lot. I'm still learning a lot. And yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much, Amber, for opening up and being humble and vulnerable and telling us about how you even like abused confession. I'm sure that there are a lot of people who do that. So, not that there's like no shame in doing it, but it is good to admit that that's where you were at with your understanding, and your understanding of how to approach that sacrament has grown. So, with the Goretti Group, we are a ministry focused on chastity. I'm wondering if you can tell me, what are your thoughts on chastity, and why is it a virtue instead of just like a consolation prize? Sometimes people think, oh, I can't get a girlfriend right now, or I can't have a man, so therefore I'm chaste. And it's kind of like a default instead of something that's sought after.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times people confuse purity with chastity. So there's like this whole purity culture we have nowadays. And chastity is basically you stay chaste so that A, you don't get into issues like bad relationships, sex outside of marriage, all of those things. But also something that St. Thomas Aquinas said was that grace perfects virtue. And so through that, it's like we do need grace to perfect any virtue, but chastity in general is one of the most important because we know for a fact that lust is one of the main sins that sends people to hell, and chastity is in the sense an opposite of lust. It's kind of like the switch side. And so if you struggle with lust, you got to practice chastity. Now these days people think chastity means you're a complete prick and you don't like want to date anyone and you are a tease or a flirt or whatever. And I was talking with one of my friends, and they were saying like it's impossible to find anyone chase in sororities or in fraternities because it's almost like a rite of passage nowadays is like you can't be a virgin. Whereas 50 years ago, virgins were looked up to. They were just like the Virgin Mary, you know, people like not idolized, but they looked up to those people who were chaste and virtuous and stuff. And now it's completely taken that 180, which is why I think we have such an issue with chastity. But the main reason chastity is important is because it's not just for you, it's also for your future spouse, but it helps you so that you have your boundaries in place so that people do not abuse you, so that people do not walk all over you. And that way, if you practice chastity, you will find someone who will be attracted to that. And that is what you want. You don't want any of these frat boys or anything like that. You want a man who's going to be chaste. And so, because that way, you know, he has self-control, which is like one of the main things you need to look for in a man. So, yeah.
And the main thing that men have to look for in women too, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Modesty. Loving another person is willing their good. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're not willing someone's good, you're not really loving them. What advice would you give to your younger self going into high school, or to a girl who's like 14 to 16 in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I remember completely being engulfed in the world at that point. There was no real religion in my life, and I'd had completely forgotten about God at that point. So, I mean, I knew he existed, but he wasn't as present because, you know. So, the best advice I could give is to push back, actually. I wish I would have pushed back a lot instead of just being like, oh, yeah, no, that's okay. Like, oh, yeah, okay, that's fine. You know, I was a people pleaser again, and I wanted people to like me. That is not a good trait. That is not good. Being kind and being giving, that is a good trait. But being a people pleaser, that is not good because that sets you up for disaster in yourself and in relationships and friendships. And again, that's when the boundaries come in place. And so, my advice would be if there is a guy who or a girl who is pressuring you to do something you're not comfortable with, push back. Like, say no. You know, you don't have to, I guess the right term would be we are I guess the best term is what Saint Therese of Lisieux said. The world is thy ship, not thy home. I'm not sure if that's a direct quote, but she basically said that. And so following the world isn't going to get you to heaven. Following the world isn't going to make you more virtuous. And hanging out with people who are worldly, while you can still have friends like that for sure, I know for a fact though that when I came back into my faith, those friends just kind of distanced themselves from me naturally. So nothing crazy happened there. But I would definitely say write out a list of your boundaries and things that you are looking for. Like in a future, I wouldn't suggest to date when you're 14, but you know, things that right now you kind of want in a future boyfriend or something. And make sure that it's relevant to your faith. Your faith should always be at the forefront of your mind when you're thinking about dating somebody. Because if it's not, you run into major issues if you start dating somebody who doesn't have their morals aligned with your faith, so the Catholic Church. And if they are a completely different religion or even just a Protestant, that that will line up for disaster as well. So,
So when you said you wouldn't recommend 14-year-olds necessarily dating, when would you recommend people start dating or courtship? And what should be their reasons for entering into that?
Yeah, I think the best time to start dating is out of high school, mainly because then in high school, you're only there for 4 years. That sounds like a really long time, but then when you become a senior, you look back on it, you're like, wow, that went by so fast. And I've heard of very, 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 very few relationships working long distance where they met in high school and then they went to separate colleges. You should be able to find somebody at your church or at your college or whatever. But the thing is, if you go to a college specifically for a person and not for your own, you want to go there for engineering maybe or art or something, and you completely give up what you want to do for that person and you guys end up breaking up, that's going to cause resentment. And then there's going to be all of these issues. And so it's always best to wait college age. I usually say usually 18, 19 is usually pretty good. But you also want to make sure for the men, in a sense, they should start looking to date for building a family and looking for a virtuous wife, but they should also be able to support the family. If they cannot support a family, they really shouldn't be looking to date just yet. And I know sometimes that gives people like ruffled feathers. They're like, well, me and my boyfriend, we've been dating since we were 14 and like we're all fine and we have a family now. It works for some people, but I'm just saying to avoid major struggle in a relationship, major stress, the man should already have a plan for how he's going to support a family and hopefully through one income. While women can work, and that's important if they need to, like if it's emergency, the women should still have the family as the top priority. The kids, like the kids come, well, the husband comes first, then the kids come, God and everything. But it's ordered. It's God, husband, wife, kids, and it's under this umbrella.
It's
And
not God, dogs, Starbucks, maybe husband when he's good looking and fit, and then like, no.
I mean, sometimes it goes like that, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so interesting to see though, because I feel like so many people, I was one of them too. I was definitely one of these people. So many people who date before they're ready to. And it put me in a bunch of hot water when I was in high school. And it just caused so much unnecessary drama that I had to go through in high school. And it could have saved me so much time and effort if I had just gone with my gut feeling and just been like, no, I'm going to stay single for a while, kind of thing. Obviously, things are different now, but back in high school, I mean, it was just one of those things that if waiting isn't going to kill you, honestly.
Die from not having sex.
Yeah.
Just checking.
No, yeah, it's not like oxygen. You don't need it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, priests would be dead by now. So, but it's one of those things where I feel like so many people are eager to constantly be in relationships, and yet they don't work on themselves. Mm-hmm. And they constantly point at other people. They're like, oh, well, this person didn't give me this, and that person didn't give me that. And I'm like, okay, well, do you even have those traits? I mean, look at yourself. Like, do you know how this is going to sound like so bad because the world has completely corrupted what it means to be a woman, but it's like, do you know how to cook? Do you know how to clean properly? Do you know how to sew? Do you know how to, all those things that are really a woman's responsibility? Men should definitely help, but all those things, are you working on yourself so that you are prepared for marriage when you are going to be doing those things? It's all about setting up little habits now so that you can implement them in the future and you don't have to think about it really. It just makes everything so much easier.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I just had an inspiration. I was like, I can see it now. The religious hippie cookbook, or like cooking with Amber. I think that there's a market for that.
Maybe my own clothing line. I just made my first skirt today. So
that's cool. And it's a mini skirt.
No, it goes down to the knees.
Oh, got it. So you can wear
church skirt.
So Yeah, and kind of riffing off of the question I asked earlier, I was thinking, how would I answer that? The original question, like advice for young girls. What would I have told my younger self? Because I was quite like kind of boy crazy or aware of boys like in high school as well. And I think I would have told myself that the people I thought were like super cool, super pretty, super popular, like had the fashion, whatever. I had something that they didn't have. And I think like I had self confidence inside of myself. And I would tell a lot of girls, like, find your self confidence, find who you are instead of trying to kind of fit this mold around you, fitting
Right.
what you think Instagram says is beautiful or what you see at your high school or is trendy or popular. Find your inner confidence and then find a group of people who truly love you for the core of who you are, not for those superficial things. And that's not any like mind blowing advice. I feel like that's a theme of a lot of movies and coming of age movies, but I still feel like, high school kids we're still kind of trying to wear different hats and different identities instead of just sitting with yourself and realizing, like, who am I at my core? And then you don't really need that external validation that comes
Right.
from like dressing a certain way or dating someone. Okay, so gonna ask you a question based on one of Tim Ferriss's questions he asks people, and I love Tim Ferriss, is which is the book you most frequently recommend to others or you buy and gift to others? What's the Catholic book you most frequently recommend others read? And if there's a few, I'll give you a max of three.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all I need. So I just lent, so the first one I always recommend, I just lent to the guy I'm dating right now. It's called The Imitation of Christ. That is by, I forget his first name, Thomas Kempis, or his last name's Kempis. It's Kempis. Amazing book. It was said to have been written during adoration, like he wrote it while in adoration. And technically, he should be a canonized saint, but apparently he was buried alive. So I don't know how that's supposed to default to like not canonizing him, but they're fighting over it. I don't know. The second book I would highly suggest is How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul, especially for young teens or young adults who are having a hard time figuring out what they need to look for in a man, or how to prioritize chastity and the virtues in a relationship, and what to look for, what to avoid, examples. They give real life examples of people they've worked with who have sent them emails and told them life experience. It is super relatable. It is very, very helpful if you struggle with what to look for in a relationship. And it gives both sides. So it gives the woman and the man side. It says 21 secrets for women for dating, but I think men should read it as well, just because, and yeah, it's a little more on the girly side theme, but it gives men a good idea of what real chaste women, Catholic women, are looking for in a man. And then the last one I would actually suggest is The Anti-Mary Exposed. And it's a very, very good book. It basically goes into the toxic feminist movement and how it started, the demons involved in it, how we can fight back against it, and all that awesome stuff. So, yeah, those are my three.
Thank you so much. What would you have on a billboard if you could have any message or slogan anywhere?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I have like so many, but
Just in this moment, what calls out to you? It just doesn't have to be your final answer.
I would probably honestly put Pray the Rosary. Like, I feel like that's just something that I constantly have to tell myself. And not just that, but also just God's divine mercy. Like, you are forgiven kind of thing. Obviously, we have to go to confession, but like, you are worthy of mercy. Like, you are worthy of forgiveness. Those would probably be my three options. Those would be my top three.
Yeah, I totally love that. I pray the rosary every day. I have a book actually that's called like The Secrets of the Rosary, and every day it talks about like a different rose that you're offering Mary, and like um, St. Louis de Montfort, I think, wrote that one that I'm thinking about. But I have a few different books on the rosary, and it's really transformed my parents' life and my family's life, and it's definitely a good way to prevent against sin. I think that every day I pray, start the rosary first thing in the morning, pray it. It ends up being a better day than like the few days when I like wait or somehow forget to pray it. So thank you for that. Um, okay, which purchase under $100 in the last 6 months has changed your life?
Ooh, all right. Well, I've purchased a couple things, but I would have to say that like the sewing machine I just bought. Like I just bought it 3-4 days ago, and I have learned so much. I have officially taken up sewing as a hobby. Again, just made my first skirt. And I have learned so much about like patience because sewing takes a lot of patience. But also I'm learning from my mom who hasn't sewed in over 10 years, and yet she's remembering things and she's coming back. So it teaches me patience, but also I'm learning from her, which is something that I feel like I have never done before. Like as a teenager, I was always very independent. I wanted to do it by myself. I can only like I wanted to struggle and do everything by myself, when in reality, we don't have to do that. Like we can learn from our parents, we can respect what they know and ask them for help. And I was never one of those teenagers where I was just like, oh yeah, can I have help? Unless it was with homework, because then, it's a little different. But when it came to projects, I wanted to do everything alone by myself. I just thought I could do everything alone. Sewing proved that to be difficult. I could not do that. And
Do you know how to hand stitch before or no?
I no, I mean, my mom used to sew a bunch, but I never personally knew how to sew. My sister knew a little bit. She took some classes. I never did. So it was completely new to me. And yeah, so it took us. We started at like, what was it? We started earlier this morning, and we finished it around like 12ish. It took us about a good probably 5-6 hours to do.
Make sure you
And
stay
then
hydrated when you get consumed in those projects, like
yes, we
Alzheimer's.
constantly we constantly had to like get up and like stretch our legs, and my hips and knees kept cracking because I was sitting for so long. So yeah, definitely have to go walk and stuff.
22. You're
But stuff like that, like that sewing machine has taught me so much. And I mean, my mom has too, of course, because she's helped, but it's taught me patience. It's taught me, things don't need to be perfect because you're learning. And I feel like a lot of times people feel like they need to be perfect Catholics. And I'm like, there's no such thing. We're constantly learning, we're constantly, um, I guess, evolving in our faith organically. And because of that, it's like we're never going to be perfect. You could do as much research as you possibly could in your entire life, and you will still not exhaust the amount of research we have on Catholicism. And so I feel like it's a good metaphor for just like, it's not going to be perfect the first time, but then you just keep trying and trying and trying. And it starts getting a little bit better each time you practice. So,
One of my favorite quotes is from the musical version of Cinderella, the new version, and it says, "Don't wait for everything to be perfect, just go."
mm-hmm.
And I love that because I think that idea of perfection often holds people back from trying new things. So I recently took up like the hoop stitching actually during the like
Oh, yeah.
class, and maybe I'll
Embroidery.
kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah, embroidery. Maybe I'll show you some later that I made like some Catholic ones, but I used to sew a little bit when I was younger, and I haven't in a very long time. So maybe I'll take it up. It was like I did ballet, so I had to sew my shoes, like the ribbons on them and the elastic. And then I did a lot of theater. So I did different costume shop assignments in college where I would have to sew with a machine. But I always associate it with like drudgery because I was always doing some project for someone else that I like didn't really care about the thing. I was like, meh, like I'm just doing this. Like I really want to be on stage and like singing and doing that.
Right.
So maybe I'll go back and investigate sewing because it is a very good skill. And then women can make their own, whatever, and it's good for
Veils, skirts, whatever.
mend, a sleeve or a rip or sew on a button, even a hook. Like that's just like basic. And then obviously with the machine, you can do more fancy stuff going back and forth. So that's really cool. Awesome.
So
So sewing machine. Okay, cool. Maybe we'll have to see if you make a video about like some of the stuff you showed. I really want to see.
yeah, for sure. Maybe it's just a time lapse of me and my mom struggling to get it together. It's just like, wait, where does this go? What does that do?
That's a good bonding activity too.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I don't think I've actually spent this much time with my mom in a long time, which it's been nice. It's like we can talk, but also I'm learning and despite the fact that sewing is a bit of a struggle for me because I struggle to sit still. If I start sitting still, I start to get sleepy and then I kind of just like crash. But it's kind of been one of those things where I've been persevering through it because I'm no longer 12, I'm an adult. I have to stay awake. But also just being able to just have conversations that are about life and stuff and like playing music in the background that we both like. And it's just good to spend time together for sure.
Awesome. So, question about femininity and masculinity. What are some traits that you associate with femininity? What are some traits you associate with masculinity? And do you believe in toxic masculinity, or how would you define toxic masculinity?
Yeah, so I think starting with the women, the traits that I usually put with the women is humility is a big one. Um, Not so much submissiveness as we do need to have a backbone because we do need to push against like things that are bad and we do need to be the protector inside the home. Like the man goes out, provides, outside the home, but we're the protector inside the home. So we do need that backbone. But I think the word submissiveness has been twisted in society today to mean like, oh, you're weak. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you know when to pick your battles. You know that you answer to your husband basically, and you guys are on the same page. But so modesty is a big one too. Being humble is something that I'm working on quite a bit, and I think that I not that I got super cocky when I first started out on social media, but I saw that calling myself out here, but I saw that I was gaining more followers than a lot of my other Catholic friends. And I was like, oh, I might have something that people like. And like, I didn't get like super self absorbed about it. But at the same time, I still had those thoughts of, oh, I'm better than everyone else, kind of like, and that is not good. And I snapped out of that pretty fast because I was like, that's no virtue. But that was a big struggle. And so humility is something that I think women struggle with a lot today. They, at least in my experience, when I go out into the real world, it's like a culture shock when I'm not at my church or around my Catholic friends, because women are so obnoxious. They are so like, they'll give the middle finger. They are so unladylike. They'll belch, like, and all of these things. And look, burping is a normal thing, but like I'm talking about like showing off, kind of like they're basically trying to be like men. That's the whole toxic feminist movement, is they're trying to be like men, but in the process of doing that, they're losing the femininity. They're losing what actually makes them women, and what makes us unique from men. And so those humbleness is one thing that I do link with women, and also like the main things like modesty, dresses, skirts, those cute things, doing your hair, makeup real nice, long hair. I'm trying to grow my hair out, but it's a process. Just being able to do those little things that are so ladylike, perfume, fix it, freshening up,
You
all
have
that stuff.
a signature scent.
Yes, I do. It's like a jasmine lang lang. So it's like a really sweet kind of smelling scent, but you put it on like your pressure points and then you like do behind the ear. Yeah, and it's so subtle so that when you're walking past somebody, it's just the slightest scent. You don't want to overpower them, with like Axe body spray. But but and then when you hug people, they smell a little bit more, so it's not like overpowering, but it yeah, it's like a signature for a woman is to smell nice. It's something that I think men really like. And men, you have to smell nice too. I'm just saying, women don't like BO, but.
I think like a woman having her own scent, it's almost like a coming of age thing or a rite
Yeah.
of passage. And I wish that older women can help like scaffold that process for younger girls so that, I mean, even if it's like a bath and body spray as like a starter or something like that, Victoria's Secret, I don't know. But then when it gets into like a little bit older, like it's nice to have like a real perfume that kind of matches your vibe. And I'm super into that. So that's really cool. So the traits
Yeah,
of men, what would you describe are some traits that you associate with masculinity?
definitely alpha. Um,
What is,
I dated,
no, like, can you define that?
yeah, so it's basically a man who his whole demeanor is I'm a man and I'm here to protect women and I'm here to provide. So usually they have really good posture. When they're in a group, they're not shrunken back. They're in the group. They're not afraid to be their their posture isn't like um aggressive, but it's not submissive. It's very like it's hard to explain, but
Your body language is confident. It shows that they can stand tall
yes.
and that they're not afraid of being seen. They're not like kind of hiding,
Mm-hmm.
slouching.
Yes, confidence is the perfect word. Very confident in their uh, they're very confident in what they know, and they're very confident in their beliefs. They're very confident in their religion. They're very confident in that, and that shows not through only what they're talking about, but also through their personality and their posture, how they speak. They're not just like, oh yeah, well I kind of believe this, like I think this is really important. It's no, this is important. This is what I believe. It's not, yeah, I kind of believe. It's and then if they are corrected, like if they got something wrong, they'll apologize, or they will be like, oh, I didn't think of that, like thank you. Like they will acknowledge that either they were wrong, or that maybe they were given more information than they originally had, and then they go and do more research about that. So traits for the men, definitely the alpha, definitely confidence, super important. um, and also, I think the best thing is being a provider, not just materialistically, not just a house and a car, but also spiritually. So when you look for a man, look for someone like Saint Joseph with those virtues, humility, kindness, a man who maybe he does talk, but he will listen as well when you are talking. And he won't just give you I always hated it when I had friends who would do this, where I would complain about something and then they would like offer me like suggestions or something like that. Like sometimes we would just want to complain to complain. Whereas I feel like a good masculine man will bring you back down to earth and be like, is this important? Or like, is this actually something worth worrying about, really? Like somebody who can tell me, like, hey, this is definitely important to you, and that's great, but maybe look at it from this angle instead, and kind of just bring grounding us, because that's what the men are supposed to do. They're logical, women are emotional. So when we get too emotional, the men use the logic to bring us back down. And if men are too logical, we use emotions to get them back to being well-rounded. And it's a process for sure, but that would basically be my summary for it.
Okay. And just to clarify, because I know some people might take sound bites and be like, women are emotional, men are logical. We know that women can have logic. Obviously, like I'm a teacher,
Yeah.
consider ourselves logical, and men have emotions. Like, but it's that complementarity that I think you're getting at, how we fulfill different roles for each other. And I do think with the note of like the alpha traits, sometimes a man can appear to be alpha, but that first thing that you said was like protecting women. They lack that instinct to protect women. I've been many places where someone doesn't offer to walk ladies to their cars at night, or a man, keeps you over at his place when it's too late, or kind of suggests inappropriate things or inappropriate situations. So he might appear to be an alpha. He might even be someone who goes to church, but there's also like those wolves in sheep's clothing too. So I would just recommend all ladies to think through about however you define masculinity, remember that you're looking for a holy man, and some of those other things too, like posture or even speaking with confidence, sometimes that develops in time, and men need other male mentors to help show them those ways of like, getting with a guy and being like, hey man, like, let's go lift some weights and like stand up a little straighter, or
testosterone.
or like at the end of everything you say, you don't have to say, oh, but I don't know, because then it kind of undercuts everything you said before. And a lot of that is just learned. Some people get into habits of saying like an opinion, and then they're like, but I don't really know, and they kind of walk it back. So, okay. I was going to ask you one other question kind of related to this. Okay, so toxic masculinity. Do you believe there is such a thing?
Um, it's kind of hard to explain. Technically, no, I don't really think it's a thing, but a lot of people do. Um, I don't think it's a thing mainly because the toxic feminist movement is kind of feeding, any toxic masculinity that does exist. But for the most part, we don't have a masculine movement. We don't have this movement of men trying to be like, well, no. So I was thinking about the LGBTQ community, but then I was like, no, that's a different subject. But we don't have a toxic masculine movement. We don't have that. Sure, there are men who are womanizers for sure. I mean, but then again, there are women who are masculinizers. Like it goes both ways.
They have their rotation of boys that they cycle through.
Yeah, but the thing is that the feminist movement, this movement that we have nowadays, is nothing like the original feminist movement that we had that was all about being pro-life and not being equal to men, like the rights are equal, but to still keep our femininity and our uniqueness while still wanting equal pay and stuff like that. Like that was really important. Now it's just the toxic feminist movement. And because of that, I feel like it feeds any toxic masculinity that might still be around, and the thing is though, there's no, that at least I'm aware of, there's no masculine group, there's no, the feminist movement that we have nowadays, that's a group of women wearing pink hats and like all of that stuff. The men, that doesn't exist, and so it's hard for me to see how toxic masculinity is like a huge issue when we have this modern day feminist movement that's really causing a lot of the issues. It seems like it's mirroring. People are blaming it on toxic masculinity when in reality it's different.
Do you think that more people your age are coming around to these realizations that you've had? I'm a millennial. I think you're probably more Gen Z technically. So I do hear a lot of different things about Gen Z, and some are more nihilistic. And then others I've heard are getting a lot more conservative, like a subset of them are going back kind of like a reaction towards everything of, hey, I'm going to be more natural. I'm going to get married younger, and I want to like have a family, and I believe in love. What's your experience with where you think Gen Zs are?
Yeah, I think it's really hard because most of what I see from Gen Z is just such a mix. It's so hard to put like a whole generation under one title because we are all so different. If I go on TikTok, which I hate TikTok by the way, if I go on TikTok and I see Gen Zs, it's usually immodest dancing, it's singing to inappropriate lyrics, it's pro-choice, pro this, liberalism, blah, blah, blah. But then when I'm actually in the real world, when I am actually conversing with Gen Z people from, it doesn't even really matter where, whether it's my church, just in general, friends, family, just out and about, whatever, they are level-headed, grounded, and it's so odd to see though, because it's like such a drastic difference. It's like this side of Gen Z belonged in like the 1940s, and this side of Gen Z probably needs a psychic evaluation. Like, it's very interesting to see the contrast. I do believe that a lot more of the Gen Z people, at least closer to my age in their 20s, are waking up. We just had a bunch of conversions come back to my church, like reverts. They like all of a sudden we just had a group of young adults just revert back to Catholicism at the exact same time. And so now we have like this great group going and everything. But it's just, I think it's coming in waves because I don't know if you know Saint Carlos Acutis, or not Saint, sorry, Blessed. He's not canonized yet, I don't believe.
He was the younger one, right?
Yes, yes. And
is that the one with the Eucharistic Miracles website that he?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he basically said, because you know how you have to have certain miracles happen in order to be beatified and then or can't, yeah. So one of the miracles was he told his mother, after me there will come a legion of saints. And so I can only hope and pray that is hopefully my future children or maybe our generation will come around. And I don't know what that means. You know, it could mean a big thing of martyrdom. It could mean that it could be white crowns. It could be red crowns. And white crowns is like obviously not martyrdom. Red crown is, you know, martyrdom. Yeah. But it's just interesting to think about. Like after me, there will come a legion of saints. And so it's something I always think about. And I'm like, how can I help contribute to that legion of saints? Not just through myself, but also through my future kids. What can I prep right now? What can I prepare for while I'm so young that will benefit my kids when I have them in the future?
I think similarly about that. And a lot of times I think that people who are seeking a spouse can take a step back and think about that and like give yourself some projects. You know, what books do you need to read for your kids before then? How can you spiritually equip yourself to be more knowledgeable about the faith, especially if you're going to be basically catechizing them? It's not really the church's responsibility to catechize young children, and yet a lot of people assume that it is. And I think that's why a lot of people fall away from their faith because they were poorly catechized, which kind of happened to me. I was a Protestant for 5 years, evangelical, and then I came back into Catholicism like full force, and then kind of discovered a lot of things in like Latin Mass and just like the history of Catholicism that I didn't know before. But I think that if parents and young people take that time now thinking about how can I prepare myself so I can equip my kids, that's a really good starting place. So kind of moving into the recent news of the Latin Mass, maybe some people have noticed my shirt. It says "Save the Trads" and with like the Greek symbol for Jesus is King. And on the back it says "Ora pro nobis." So yeah, and I made some little shirts that will go towards supporting my local Institute of Christ the King parish. They're actually having mass out of a mini mall. They're renting a space in a mini mall that's going to be demolished. So once the space is demolished, I don't know where they're going to go. And that's like a whole other story. So I'm trying to kind of help them. But what is your take on why Pope Francis issued the motu proprio? And for those of you who are watching this, you probably already heard about it on my channel or on her very large YouTube platform. But the motu proprio is from Pope Francis, called Traditionis Custodes, which is sort of moving out, phasing out of the Latin Mass, which is the extraordinary form of the Mass in the Roman Rite, where you receive communion on the tongue at an altar rail. There's more modesty in the whole church. Women are supposed to wear veils, and there's no Susans handing out communion, right?
Yeah.
It's a different vibe. The priest is facing away ad orientem, and the whole the church body is all in unity, performing that sacrifice of the Mass towards God. And Vatican II Novus Ordo Mass is a newer version of the Mass, which is in whatever the vernacular languages, English, Spanish, Arabic, Vietnamese, and a bit more modern and updated. So what is your take on why the Pope is doing this? We know that he said it is to promote unity. That's what he said in the cover letter. But what do you think is the reason why?
It's hard to figure it out. I've watched everyone's opinions on it at this point, and my own informed opinion would be I think Pope Francis is afraid of young traditional people. And I can't tell you exactly why he would be afraid of us. But we've had popes in the past that weren't the best. You guys can do research on that. And it's interesting to see. But I think one of the main reasons he did it was because the Latin Mass was growing. It was in demand a lot. Like my parish, well, it's not really a parish. It is a parish, but never mind. It's a long story. But we just got
the group you go to with the Latin Mass.
Right. So we just got the Latin Mass there. Like it was performed by Bishop. Oh man, I can't remember now. Anyway, he did my confirmation when I was younger. And they like slap you. It's great. But
diocesan, or are you like through FSSP or?
No, it's diocesan. Yeah. It's just they changed so technically like it's not a parish, it's a mission.
Okay.
So I don't know, they changed it, but it originally was a parish and then the diocese changed it to a mission. But we just got it, and because the young adults were asking for it constantly, we're just like, we want the Latin Mass, we want the Latin Mass. And I used to go to St. John Cantius, downtown Chicago, which was a beautiful church, but it was really hard to get to, like really, really difficult because of construction, but also it's about a 45-minute drive. That just took a huge amount of time out of my day. And if that was the only Latin Mass available, I would have still continued going. However, when the one closer to me got a Latin Mass, I was like, boom, bada bing, bada boom, like there we go. And so I think part of it is that they have been trying to implement this I go to a Novus Ordo as well. Like I go to a very reverent Novus Ordo. We still kneel and receive communion on the tongue. We still veil during it and all of that. But I think because they've been trying to creep in this not new age, but very modern type of Mass. I mean, you can go to a Catholic Novus Ordo Mass that's not here, somewhere else, and there will be tons of Eucharistic abuses, liturgy abuses. It's just unfortunately very bad.
Girl, I am from California and I can tell you some stories, but I do not want to scandalize everybody. But we have seen some things, let's just put it that way.
Oh, it's been terrible. And so I feel like with everyone, with my generation and millennials as well, wanting the old Mass, the traditional Mass, I think they're just kind of like, oh my gosh, they're undoing all the work we've tried doing from Vatican II and stuff. And I'm not saying Vatican II is invalid. I'm just saying that there were a lot of things that were misunderstood in Vatican II. And so now people just took it as a free-for-all to do whatever they wanted during the Novus Ordo instead of following the guidelines that were actually put, And so I think it came from a lot of fear, because if that's the case, if that's the reason for division, which the TLM is not the reason for the division, because in my life, I only started going to the TLM for the last year. I was raised in it, but I only started going by myself the last year. I have witnessed more pride in the Novus Ordo Masses and in the Novus Ordo people, like you said, the Susans and the Eucharistic ministers, and oh no, you can't kneel to receive Jesus Christ. Like, do you think you're better than everyone else? Like, kind of thing. So there was always a lot of pride surrounded by the Novus Ordo. And I'm not saying that's for everything. I'm just saying from what I witnessed, when I started going to the TLM, everyone was extremely humble. Everyone knew why they were there. It wasn't because they were just trying to check off something on a Sunday on their schedule. They knew who they sat in front of. They knew who they worshiped. And whenever I would ask, like, hey, do you go to the TLM? And they're just like, yeah, And then if I would ask someone, oh, do you go to the Novus Ordo? Yeah, like I go to the Novus Ordo. It's great. Like we have this awesome music. And like, not that that's a bad thing to talk about stuff like that, but a lot of the time there would be a lot of pride surrounded by the Novus Ordo if I found someone who went. And then when I tell them I go to the TLM, they would be like, oh my gosh, so you're one of those people? Like you're a trad? And I'd be like, well, yeah, but I didn't think it was that big a deal. Like, so it's just something I have experienced. People are going to experience different things. Um, but that, yeah, that's, I don't know if that's the reason for the division, which it's not. Then we also need to address what's happening in Germany. And he should have also put out a letter addressing the abuses happening in the Novus Ordo parishes. He shouldn't have just targeted the TLM, because that in itself caused more division than what was needed.
Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts and for speaking so candidly. I think that, yeah, this issue, I've done a lot of like research too on like listening to different people's perspectives. I actually went back and read a couple of the Vatican II documents on religious freedom, um, and how do we treat people of other faiths. And I thought it was kind of interesting how we're supposed to promote religious freedom as Catholics, according to Vatican II. But I feel like religious freedom is not really being advocated for the traditionalists.
Right.
It's not just a mass, it's also a culture. You can see all elements of culture present in the traditional Latin mass: dress, language, gender roles. That has to do with culture. And if we want to validate there being diversity of different rights culturally, that's totally fine. Then I kind of feel like we shouldn't try to do away with the culture within the extraordinary form of the Roman Rite, where you have people who they want to be in a community where women are dressing modestly and wearing veils and men are wearing suits, and there's families that have 10, 12 kids and no one is like shamed or like stared at, or jokes are being made about like, oh, another baby. Like you also get that too. And I was even comparing some data between Novus Ordo attendance and TLM attendance. And maybe you've seen some of this data, but politically, they're very different. Novus Ordo, like Catholics, tend to be more with the times with approving of contraception, abortion, homosexuality, and they have a lower birth rate. Traditional Latin Mass, it drops to like 1% of traditional Latin Mass people are okay with abortion. It's basically no. And the same thing with other issues like contraception and homosexuality, and approving and wanting like women to have a more active role in the ministry and in the worship, like lectors and deacons, and some even say priests. So yeah, I can show you that research that was done based on Pew Research studies in case you haven't seen it, because that's kind of interesting. It does seem like it's targeting a conservative group of people.
Yeah. No, for sure. I've definitely felt that as well. And then instead of the support of like, I know a lot of bishops won't shut it down. I know some, like in Arkansas, a bishop already shut down the TLM, but I know for a majority of the time, most bishops won't shut down the TLM. But I feel like it's just caused so much division now, because even though I feel like it's a test from God to test his faithful, it's still causing that division of now people are rebelling against the Pope and becoming sedevacantism, like sedevacantists,
Yeah.
or apostates, like they're renouncing their faith altogether and becoming Protestants, or they're going to Orthodoxy.
Have you seen that or heard of it actually happening? Okay, because I've heard of YouTubers saying that could happen or that they think it is happening, but I've never known any traditionalist so far who has said that. So I was thinking, like, is this really true, or is this, because like I kind of thought, well, is that the hill people want to die on, that they're going to like go outside of the church? Because if that's the case, then it almost, makes Pope Francis's point seem valid, that these people were already basically in schism. If they're willing to just call it quits now, over this issue, then they were already schismatic in their hearts. But I've never met any traditionalists like that. And I do want us to all be one. I truly do. I want Protestants and Orthodox and everyone for Jesus to be one. That's what Jesus wants too. Jesus says, let us all be one. So
Absolutely. No, couldn't agree more, for sure.
So I'm going to end on a lighter hearted question. So dating, the fun topic, right? Girls love to talk about boys and all that. How should a guy approach a girl if he's romantically interested in her and he wants to date her, he wants to ask her out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing is to get to know her a little bit first, gain at least a foundation of trust. I think that is very important. And it doesn't have to be for a super long time. I think getting to know her, like meeting her maybe at a maximum of 3 times would be okay, you know, and then you can ask her out. But when you approach her, it should be in a group setting. It should be comfortable. You both should feel, um, I guess, relaxed about it. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't feel super tense or like nervous or anything. Like, just be very natural about it. And I know that's harder for some than others because some people do lack confidence. That is something you can work on before you start dating. Work on your confidence, work on your relationship with Jesus. That's all important stuff to do. But if you feel like you're ready, it should personally, it should be in a group setting. She should get to know you in a group setting. And if you find that she gravitates towards you or you gravitate towards her and she's not like running away from you screaming, then you're pretty good. You should be pretty good to be like on a friend basis. And then from there, you can, of course, be like, hey, I'd like to get to know you a little better. Like, would you like to go on a date with me? Don't be like, we're going on a date. It's a question, ask. And if she says yes, you pick the time and you pick the day, you know? And if she says, oh, that day doesn't work for me, then tell me what day does work for you and I'll pick you up at 7 or something, you know? But for the most part, women, y'all, like, unless if you don't want to go on a date with him, say no, please. Like, just save you guys a whole bunch of issues and just say no, you don't want to go on a date. It's totally fine. Makes it just so much easier. But yeah, I would definitely suggest doing that.
So men should use the word date instead of hang out, or what do you think?
Mm-hmm. Don't say hang out. Hey, you want to hang out sometime? No, Chad. I don't want to hang out sometime. Take me out for dinner.
I totally agree with you. And I also think that it shows a higher level of investment from the start when you say date. And if you want to even show higher level, when you say lunch or dinner instead of coffee or walk. I can walk around on myself. Like, I don't even drink coffee. You know what I mean? We can get
Exactly.
coffee and walk with anyone. And I also think that the men who do ask for dinner or lunch, they'll set themselves apart. Like, let's say that there's like a really beautiful, awesome girl in a group. There's probably 5 guys who want to ask her out. Maybe there's 3 with the confidence to do it. And out of those 2 will probably ask her to coffee and 1 will ask her for dinner or date. Who is she going to spend more time with? Or if 3 people ask her out, she might be like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm just going to go with dinner because this guy is like willing to invest that amount of time and maybe even a little bit of money with me. And it doesn't even have to be about the money, right? Like, a man could, take you to Panera or like make some sandwiches. If he's like a student, let's say he's like a med student or something, use those meal swipes, whatever. It's not about the money. It's about the thought, right? The effort, the approach.
Exactly. And I also feel like it's important that the guys, especially when you ask her, um, it's hard to explain, but you should ask her in private, not in front of you. So while you get to know her in a public setting, if at the end of this public group, you guys are like, maybe the only 2 left or something, be like, hey, I don't think it's appropriate to ask someone out in front of like a bunch of people. And also, I think dating has been warped a lot today, like you said, like they think hanging out is dating or getting coffee is dating. It's important to remember, though, that dating is for the discernment of marriage. It's not just to have a boyfriend or not to just be single, you know, it is for the discernment of marriage. And so if you are dating somebody, most of the time it is to get to know each other and get to know if your virtues are there and that kind of thing. It's not just to have fun or to have a best friend that's completely yours. I mean, those are all perks, of course, but it is for the discernment of marriage. So when you look for a boyfriend, look for a father to your children as well, who will be a good father, a good provider, not just a good companion, but somebody who will actually invest into the children and will be a good dad.
And lastly, how can guys kind of add in that element of romance into things and make themselves stand out to show that they are interested in you romantically and not just treating you as a friend without being too forward?
Uh, Great question. Eye contact.
Wow, something as simple as that.
Yeah, I've never gotten eye contact before now. And
You're so pretty, they're afraid to like look and they're nervous and they're just like, or maybe it's like the cool guy thing to be like, I don't need to even look at you. I can just like talk and like check in with you every once in a while kind of thing.
right. And the thing is, with eye contact, it shows you that they're invested in what you have to say. And the eye contact actually helps build a bit of a bond because when you look into somebody's eyes, the eyes are a window to the soul, basically. And so you can have that. I mean, you can just have conversations with your eyes. It's really funny. And so eye contact is one of the best ways to do that, to show that you care, to show that you're listening, to show that you are invested in what they are saying. And not just that, but you are also, I mean, we are just communal creatures in general, and eye contact is one of the ways we communicate. You know, if I look at you in the eyes and you're looking at me in the eyes, I know that you see me. I know that you're listening to me. I'm being acknowledged. And I feel like nowadays it's so common to just be like playing eye tag, I like to call it, where like you're trying to chase somebody's eyes and they're like going all over the place and you're like, wait, like I want to connect, you know? So eye contact is very important. And also showing that you, I guess, you care about, like, you want to put effort in. So don't like just be in sweatpants and a t-shirt. Girls, don't just wear like t-shirt and shorts. Like, actually put a
What
little.
most of us are probably wearing today, right?
I'm wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, definitely. Right. But if you go on a date or if you are going on a hangout or you're going to meet their family or you are going to whatever it might be, like get a little bit, you know, spiffied up, you know, and put some makeup on, not like 10 pounds of it, but just like look nice, you know, do your hair, take a shower, put on some perfume, you know, maybe a nice dress or a nice outfit. A lot of the times I just have a nice blouse, like a very nice shirt and some skinny jeans, and that works for me. It looks good with some high heels. um but for the most part, it's like put some effort in, you know, into how you look. It shows you, it'll show the person that you're trying to date or court that you care about them enough to put some effort into yourself to look decent, instead of just putting like a bunch of grease in your hair and like a gray t-shirt and like some sweatpants. Like, put on some shorts, some cargo shorts, some jeans, like a polo, something nice, you know.
I totally agree. I mean, I can remember different dates I went on with guys where I noticed from the jump, oh, they're wearing flip-flops. And I kind of thought like I planned my outfit for like an hour and you just rolled up in flip-flops and shorts. Like what? Yeah.
I know what you mean. I absolutely, yep, 100%.
It's a level of investment. And it's kind of like, you know, if you go to church, are you going to wear flip-flops? Like probably not. So okay. And you are dating someone, right? You're being courted, right? So
Yeah.
what's the difference between dating and courtship?
Courtship is very similar to dating, except you basically, in dating these days, Somebody asks you out, you say yes, that's that. Like you start going on dates, like that's it. Courtship is they're more invested. They will go and meet your parents. You go and meet their parents. You become involved in what they like to do. A lot of the times, what I really like about it is that there is no physical touching. There is no holding hands. There is no, not even really hugging, which is very nice for me. I went through a few years of not just kind of being pushed too far out of my comfort zone for too long with physical touch. And because of that, I am very shy with it. I don't like it very much. And so handshaking is great. Um,
Fist
and
bumps.
so, yeah, fist bumps, yes. And so and also you need to understand that as women, we get attached to men very easily through physical affection. Like that's just how we are. We want that physical affection, but being able to take a step back and not holding hands and not doing that kind of thing is very important because it helps your mind stay clear and you can actually see if they're virtuous and stuff and you're not being blinded by your hormones being like, oh my gosh, physical affection, like yes. And I'm not really one of those people that is like, oh my gosh, I need physical affection, like touch me, like I need hugs and I need like touch my face. Like I know some girls who just constantly need to be touching their boyfriends and I'm like, no thank you, that's not healthy. But I don't think holding hands is bad, but when you are courting somebody versus dating, you want to make sure that their virtues are in line, that they have a job, they can support a family, that they are supportive of where you are at in your life, that you guys have similar traits, similar activities, hobbies, and things like that, because that is a foundation. Hand holding is not a foundation. Physical affection is not a foundation. And a lot of times in dating, not that they'll kiss on the first date, but usually after like the first or second date, they'll start holding hands, they'll start cuddling on the couch or hugging, and that can really blind you if red flags start to pop up.
And, going back to that thing about the confident man or like the alpha man, protecting women means like respecting their boundaries and not pushing yourself too far, or even guarding their heart and realizing like if women are the weaker vessels, then like don't lead a girl on. And I've been in that situation and it's really hurt where like I'm dating someone and like, they're holding my hand and like maybe we kiss and all this stuff. And then they feel like they can just break up with me via text message or whatever. And I'm like, well, then what was all that? And some of these people even go to church. So it's like, wow. And then it just makes me realize, okay, I need to step back and have like my own boundaries in place, regardless of the emotions, regardless of, oh, they go to church with me or whatever. And time will tell. Actions speak louder than words. People can say many things. People can say, oh, I've never felt this way before, or like, oh, you're so special, and that's the thing too. I would say like, as well as physical boundaries, emotional boundaries is part of courtship.
Yes.
Don't future plan a relationship prematurely. Like sometimes I have female friends, myself included, where a man will tell you like 20 dates he wants to take you on. And it's like you're at date 3 and you never even get to date 5. And it's like, why did I future plan like, seeing visions of like, this is the one and we're going to get married and do all this stuff? No, like you're just getting to know each other. Like, slow down.
Exactly. And I always find it funny when I'm a nanny, like I babysit all the time and I used to babysit these teenagers and well, preteens, kind of teens. And she was just be like, I'm just using an example. She's like, look, Johnny Valparaiso or whatever, I wrote his name 1,000 times in my notebook and I put hearts everywhere. You know how they get like super excited and they try to put their names together and they're just like, would he take my last name or would I take his last name? What would our children be called? Like, it's the cutest thing, but at the same time, then Johnny Valparaiso goes out with some other girl or something, doesn't even know she exists. Waterworks happen, heartbreak, and all this stuff, even though she didn't even know the guy. So again, women's emotions, we can get in the way. So I think it's really important to focus on the virtue of humility, but also prudence and fortitude. Those are extremely important as well. Just because prudence and fortitude, it helps you with patience, it helps you with discernment for if this person is actually right for you versus is this just an emotional attachment that I've made in my head and I've completely made it all up, and there was no actually emotional attachment there besides maybe Johnny Valparaiso hugged me once, or something. You know what I mean? So
Well, I want to just end with a prayer. We can either, I've had a couple ideas. You mentioned humility, and in the back of the 1962 missal, there's the Litany of Humility. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Do you have a missal?
I do. I have one, but not on me. It's in my car.
Let me get it really, really, really quickly.
Okay.
On my table. And I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be like a really cool prayer.
No, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Yeah, it's if people are joining us and they have this missal, it's on page 1828 in the back. And I have a tab here, but I need to pray this more. So well, we can say this and then maybe a Hail Mary, and we can either do it in English or we can do it in Latin if you want. It's up to you.
I don't know the Hail Mary too well in Latin yet. I'd mess it up.
We'll stick to English then, but let's pray the Litany of Humility. So after what I say, then you'll say, deliver me, Jesus.
Okay.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. O Jesus, meek and humble of heart, hear me. From the desire of being esteemed, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being loved, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being extolled, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being honored, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being praised,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the desire of being preferred to others,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the desire of being consulted,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the desire of being approved,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being humiliated,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being despised,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of suffering rebukes,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being calumniated,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being forgotten,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being ridiculed,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being wronged,
deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being suspected,
deliver me, Jesus.
Now you're going to say, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it.
Okay.
That others may be loved more than I. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be esteemed more than I. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That in the opinion of the world, others may increase and I may decrease. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be chosen and I set aside. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be praised and I unnoticed. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be referred to me in everything. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may become holier than I, provided that I become as holy as I should. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. And say an Ave. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Saint Maria Goretti, pray for us. Saint Joseph,
pray for us.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. I feel like now I'm going to be remiss if I don't pray for the Holy Father's intentions. So let's just pray in our Father real quick for Pope Francis, because we do not mean to throw him any shade or disrespect. He's a wonderful person, and we're just trying to work it out in a family. Okay. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Lord, just please help the whole church find unity again, and please help everyone going through a hard time right now, whether they're in Latin Mass, Novus Ordo, whether they're Protestant, or just not even Christian yet. In Jesus' name we pray. All right, thank you so much, Amber. It just started glitching, so you're frozen. Let me see if you come back.
Oh.
Wait, now I can hear you. I can
Wait.
hear you.
Hang on. Okay, perfect.
Literally just started glitching.
Sometimes it does that. It's weird.
It's okay. Thank you so much. I'm gonna press stop.